Hello, everyone, and welcome to the VENDO podcast. Very excited for this episode today because we are joined by a very special guest. We're joined by Justin Chen. He is the co-founder at PickFu. PickFu, if you're unfamiliar, is a do-it-yourself consumer research platform for mobile games, e-commerce, and product marketing. And of course, very relevant to our discussion today, we'll be talking about how PickFu can be very helpful for growing your business on Amazon and Walmart and other marketplaces for that matter. So thank you, Justin, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited. And Justin and I got to meet in person at the Prosper show in July and in Vegas. And you know, it was 8 a.m. and we're surrounded by a bunch of thought leaders and you know, buckets of champagne. But you know, we were keeping the business rolling and keeping the conversations going. And you know, I'm excited that we met there and we're able to continue this this conversation really. And you know, for background for our listeners, we've been using PickFu at VENDO for several years now. I mean, 3-4 years at least. And it's been, you know, very impactful in our ability to really understand consumers and what they're looking for. And Justin will get into some of those details in a bit. But I'd also like to introduce everyone to Marlena. She is a strategic account manager on the VENDO team, and she is our resident PickFu expert. So she's going to be talking about, you know, everything that we're seeing here on the VENDO side of things with, you know, our portfolio of over 100 brands. And then, of course, I am the vice president of marketing and look forward to learning as well during this. So let's go ahead and kick it off. And Justin, if you want to just give a little bit of an overview about, you know, PickFu and the history there and where it's at now, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. So like you said, PickFu is a self-service consumer research platform where sellers and really anyone can get feedback on their creative decisions. So in essence, it's kind of like a simple survey. You ask a question, you put up some creative options like logos or company names, product images, and immediately we'll go out to our panel of US-based respondents and get real-time feedback. So they'll actually vote on which options that they like and give a written explanation why, and also give demographic information. So this is all data that you can use to make more informed and data-driven decisions. So it's very, like I said, it's very quick. So within 15, 30 minutes, you'll get 50 US-based respondents to respond. And so in the time that you're having coffee or lunch, you know, you'll actually have feedback from people that you can use to make a decision. And so this is great because it's a private platform that's off of Amazon. So you can test things that you're kind of just like toying around with, things that you don't maybe want to see light of day on Amazon, or maybe even things like super early, right, where you're experimenting with a new product or packaging or new design. So it's great private feedback that you can use at all stages of the product lifecycle.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks so much for that overview. And not to curtail the conversation here, but I've always been curious, how do you get people to participate so quickly? I mean, we did a poll just the other day, and it was, you know, and we set up some parameters too, like they couldn't just be anyone. They were like, you know, age 25 to 35 women and, you know, Amazon Prime customers. And like, we got those results within like an hour. I'm always impressed by that.
Yeah, so we work with other third-party panel services. And so there's a lot of these panels that are out there for general market research. So they are paid a stipend to respond to our questions. I think what helps make it fast is that people love doing our PickFu polls because they are short. They're very interesting. People love to give their feedback on new products or games or anything that our customers are testing. So they're financially motivated to do a good job. And we also curate our panel as well. So if they do a bad job, like the customers have the ability to mark them as unhelpful, and we will actually block them off the system. We'll notify them that they're not doing a good job. So there's a couple carrots and sticks to keep the quality high and to keep it fast.
Excellent. Yeah, no, it seems super streamlined. And we definitely see that in our experiences.
Great.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about kind of the past and present of PickFu and kind of where the market's going, and if you could speak to that, Justin, and then Marlena, we'll have you kind of speak to some of the tests that we're running here at Vendo and some of the results you've been seeing.
Yeah, just to give a little bit more background on PickFu, it's a very general purpose tool. Like when we first built it, it wasn't for e-commerce. My partner John and I were building a completely different business, and we were just doing a redesign of a website. And so we wanted to crowdsource feedback on something on that website. So we built PickFu just to scratch that itch. So we always thought it was just going to be startups and entrepreneurs that were going to use it. And that's why we built it. It ended up being used by a lot of self-publishing authors at first, because testing book titles and book covers became kind of in vogue with like the 4-Hour Workweek and Tim Ferriss testing his book titles and all that kind of stuff. We started seeing some startups, a lot of mobile game companies using it for like app icons, characters, app store screenshots. Actually, a lot of the similar use cases that Amazon sellers use, right? It's essentially optimizing the assets on your listing. And then a couple of years ago, the FBA kind of came out of nowhere, I think, for everyone. And we started seeing a lot of e-commerce sellers using it to test their main images. And that's I think what we're best known for right now is getting feedback on main image variations and really shortening the life cycle, the iteration cycle of getting feedback on it, and not having to wait for maybe a live A/B test on Amazon, which can have other issues and too many confounding factors. So that's kind of where PickFu is now. Like, a lot of people know us for split testing main images off of Amazon. But of course, like I said, you could use it for all kinds of different creative assets throughout your life cycle.
Yeah, no, very, very, very interesting. And I think that's a perfect segue into what Marlena on our team has been doing with testing. Main images is definitely a big part of that. So Marlena, I'd love for the audience to hear about the different types of tests we've been running here at Vendo, what you're impressed by, what you've been seeing, and just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, obviously most of our tests are for main images. That's kind of one of the most important things when you're shopping online, is seeing that product and its, at its full potential. So we really like to make sure that it's an optimized image that people are going to click through and then hopefully purchase. But obviously with that, there's a lot of other testing we do as well. So we have infographics, we have A+ content. We'll take snapshots of different brand stores. And then you can also, even without images, you can try, different phrase testing, or, just how you want to word something. And the results are very quick. So it's always very helpful for us to turn that around fast for our clients and make sure that they have the most optimized page that they can.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's an interesting piece too, with the copy, because a lot of people, especially in the Amazon space, are very very laser focused on optimizing for the algorithm, which yes is very important, because it's a huge way to rank. But I think sometimes people lose track of the consumer and the human element, right? And so there's definitely that balance, and it's hard to know those. So like it's actually easier to know which keywords to put in your copy than it is to know what's going to get a consumer to convert. And so you use different tools for keyword research and all of that, but then you use PickFu for the consumer research, right? And understanding that. So that way you're going live with kind of the best of both, and really minimizing that learning curve, and maximizing the sales growth in the short term.
Exactly. And one thing that I thought was very interesting, I was recently at a seller summit, and someone from PickFu was there, and he said, people will register an image 60,000 times faster than they will words. So that's really what is grabbing everyone's attention and bringing them to shop the site.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we see the image testing as the main focus on PickFu, just because, like you said, like, it's so important to optimize almost every aspect of your main images, to your infographics, to the brand stores as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we've taken it one step further, and we'll help clients choose products so that you know, if we want to have something exclusive on Amazon, we're going to go ahead and say, okay, let's try this with the clients on PickFu first and see, based on our brand demographics, which set of products would they like best. And then we know that that's what we can fight for to, you know, eventually have live on our site as well.
Cool. And then when you guys iterate on images, is it typically, when you're running a PickFu test, is it just the variations that you have, or do you also test against competitors?
We haven't done much competitor testing as of yet, but that is something that will probably be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
We are coming out with some different product launches, and I think that would be a great opportunity to try.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a good point, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how kind of the evolution of how people use PickFu. You know, we watch our customers do it, right? Like they're the ones who come up with all these great ideas. It's not us figuring it out. So it's very interesting to see our power sellers come through and kind of follow this process, this iterative process that they've kind of developed on PickFu. And, you know, so some people will start by doing a competitive test first, just to see like where they're lacking on maybe they take snapshots of their search result listings or their main images and say like, which one would you buy, and try to understand why. And then make tweaks. So then they'll do a few tests where they're doing variations based on that feedback. And then finally do another competitive test as like a sanity check. Okay, did we actually make an improvement here, before then launching with like that new main image? So, or title or anything that you're adjusting. So it's an interesting practice that we're starting to recommend to a lot of our customers, because we have seen it so successfully used with some of our power customers.
Oh yeah, that's great. I know even how fast you get to read all the comments too.
Yeah.
I mean, getting to see the feedback of why customers are choosing one thing over another.
Mm-hmm.
Even we've used that in like future product launches, because we know, for example, clients like something better in the packaging. It looks more legitimate. It looks like they're really getting something high quality. So then we can take that and run with it for the entire brand at that point. So it's just nice to see that feedback as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think people come to us for the quantitative feedback, but they usually they stay for the qualitative, right? It's really that written feedback that makes all the difference, because you want something actionable to take to the next version, or to make a more confident decision with. Like, you really want to understand the why. And I think that's what's missing with even just doing like tests on Google Ads or Facebook, or, you know, just an A/B test on live on Amazon, is that you will see some of those numbers, but you still won't really understand why. Like maybe it was the color, maybe it was like the layout or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you're doing just a regular test with no feedback, you would have to do multiple tests to kind of narrow in on potentially what it would be. Whereas right away, you get what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. No, definitely a big value add there with the detailed written feedback. I mean, it can bring to light a lot of things that, you know, as brand owners or as sellers or marketers, whatever, close to the products, you know, you sometimes lose sight of, you know, you're so close to it, you lose sight of something that might be so obvious to others. And so like one of these tests we were running recently, I mean, there was like, we had Himalayan pink salt in the picture, and people were calling it Rice Krispies. They were calling it rock candy. I mean, someone thought it was almond bits. I mean, people had no idea. And here we weren't even testing for that. We thought the salt looked like salt. That wasn't of concern. And then we were like, wait a minute. This is a big red flag. And we were about to print this on, you know, tens of thousands of products, you know, packaging. So yeah, really enlightening there. And you know, we talked about the past, we talked about the present, and we got into a little bit of the future. And so I'm just curious to know if there's any additional kind of trends, or, you know, whether it's like certain types of imagery that's working better, or just any kind of trends or things that you see kind of starting to happen more and more that will become bigger in the future.
I guess on the images, the things that we're starting to see and that we recommend to a lot of our sellers are things like, you know, having eye candy on the main image. So things that like literally really pop out. Maybe they're not technically on the packaging, but they're kind of overlaid on the packaging. So maybe it's like quantity counts or like ingredients, stuff like that. Obviously, other best practices like just filling the space. I think this is where a lot of sellers just fall short because maybe they have like a really tall thing and it really distorts the image, and there's all this empty space that they're not using well. Showing the packaging seems to be a really common thing that more people should be doing, especially if they're spending time on really nice packaging. Like it's a big component of it. Visual representation of ingredients is really interesting. I think like if it's lavender, like we see a lot of people actually having a picture of lavender kind of like superimposed as opposed to just having it on the packaging or anything like that. I think that really draws the attention. And then showing all the contents laid out nicely. I think that's something that I think a lot of sellers, a lot of buyers are starting to expect from their main images. Just like, show me all the pieces that are coming, even if it's just like attachments and like all these things. I think they really like to see it all laid out. And it's such a good way to use up all that white space so that it just feels like you're getting a lot.
Oh yeah, we've seen that as well. I mean, we have some items that are, have multiple pieces inside the packaging. And when we took over, the packaging was the only image as the main image. And doing some testing, we would fan out the products on the inside or try different ways to lay it out. And every time it seemed like the people being pulled just like to know what they were getting for their money and what that value really looked like. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much more information just by laying it out. Like you can communicate so much more information to the buyer that it's, I mean, it really is an interesting art now, just finding the right layouts because it's not a general rule that you could apply to every single product in every industry. Like it obviously differs, but it's such an interesting art to figure out how much information you can convey in this single image, which is so important, right? Because you're just scrolling on mobile and whatever stops you, you're going to look at it before clicking through. And if you can convey, the fact that like every single shirt that's included in a pack has a different saying. Like we had one poll that it was like a pack of shirts and they all had different sayings, but the way they originally fanned it out, like you couldn't even tell. Like it just looked like maybe they were different colored shirts or whatever. And once you relayed it out where like you could see every single one was different, like, oh, that's a completely different value, right? Like that was totally hidden. And maybe you had to click into the listing and actually read it. But why not just do it in the main image?
Yeah, I think that's the most valuable place to start. So it's always good. And I think another thing I saw was just having as much detailed information as possible. Just having our products, the closer up, the more they could read the packaging and see what was on there. That also really resonated. Whereas if it was maybe a little bit further away, based on like a certain layout we were trying, they didn't like it as much because they couldn't see the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think kind of just to summarize, this great conversation that you two are having is, no aspect is really too small, and with e-commerce in general, marketplace or D2C or wherever, a little adding a percentage point or a half of a point or a quarter of a point can make a big difference in your sales and your growth. And I think you're seeing this more and more where brands that are really on it are spending lots of time, understandably, on tweaking and optimizing every part of the user consumer experience. And that of course plays in a lot to content, whether it be written or visual. And so, what I would kind of, summarize this as is like, no point is too small, and always test, right? And what works for one category or one product type is not going to be the same for another. And I think you pointed it out great with the lavender example. We saw kind of this rise of grocery products using the ingredients in the main image to make it more tasty, right? Because like if you think about, like a protein bar or something, it's got its beautiful packaging, but then you look at the bar and it might just look like a brown or blob. And like, that doesn't make your mouth water, but what does make it is the chocolate that's in it. So showing that drizzling down or the, the peanut butter looking really like, you gotta make that stand out. And you only have, you only have that main image, especially on the search results, to get that click. So you got to make it stand out for your product, but you got to make it stand out amongst the other products on that virtual shelf. And so looking at what are people in your category doing, and then, not just trying to replicate that, but trying to enhance it and do it in your own branded way. I think that's going to lend to higher click-through rates and higher conversion rates. And I know that the case studies that we're developing and have developed support that. So PickFu is certainly a great way to, again, jumpstart that learning curve and get ahead quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that we try to teach, and what we're doing on the PickFu side, is we're building out our customer success team to really educate customers, because it's really a mindset that we're trying to instill, like an experimentation mindset. And I think for some, this kind of comes naturally to want to test out different things, but for some others, it's not natural. So what we're trying to teach them is that you should be experimenting with all these different things and all the time, right? Because just because a certain best practice is trending now, like these trends change so fast, especially on Amazon, where people are innovating all the time and then copying each other. And then, what was an advantage like a few months ago is the minimum that you have to do. And now everyone has the same thing. So like, what are you going to do to stand out now? And so you kind of have to have this mindset of like, all right, I'm going to try something different. And you could test it on PickFu, obviously. So that's something that we're trying to do better about, is just like helping our customers get to that point where they're coming up with these things on their own.
Yeah, no,
that makes sense. I mean, I think too, I found a lot of results very surprising. We would kind of take bets on the side, like, I think it's going to be this way, and we were wrong. So it's always good to kind of like double check.
Yeah, and I always say, a group of 3 or 4 people that work together isn't exactly a statistical, sample. So, you might want to go back and forth with your team, but then test amongst a larger, unbiased group. But no, this has been great, Justin and Marlena, and I think what you're saying, Justin, really resonates, is like, you got to keep testing, you got to keep experimenting. E-commerce is evolving so quickly, and it's exciting, but you can't just put it up and think it's going to work for the next year or 2. You got to keep evolving. So we love using PickFu for that part of that very important part of the puzzle. And really appreciate, again, you coming on today. Is there anywhere that people should find PickFu or you, or reach out, that you'd like to share?
I mean, we're on all the socials, but people could always email me, justin@pickfu.com. Always happy to connect there.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining in today, and for our listeners for tuning in. And as always, you can find us at VENDO Commerce on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can email us at hello@vendocommerce.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.